Hey climbers, and welcome back to the Treehouse. My name's Ree and this is the tarot tree, and yeah, long time no see basically. I thought I'd hop on here with a new tarot mat. Isn't it beautiful? Look at these silver birches, very wintry. A little bit of a giveaway as to what this video is about. So basically I thought I'd come back with my winter wonders, i.e. my seasonal picks. So these would be my decks that really speaks to the winter season for me. I don't know, I've probably said it before because I've made an autumn fall version of this video already. I do like to use my deck seasonally. I do like to look at them in terms of elemental energy, and I like to match the seasons. I do like to work with that seasonal energy, and I guess my practice isn't really any different. Not that it's exclusive, obviously. Some days certain decks will take my fancy that might not be in these sort of tundra wintry vibes, but you know, I thought it's nice to actually like look through some and in through that lens, you know, as it were. So without further ado, let's crack on, because there's quite a few, and there's both tarot and oracle here actually, so we're going to get a little bit of both. So yeah, winter wonders, here we go. So first up, a relatively new deck that has come into my collection. That is the Monsoon Tarot. I have showed it on here before, I think, maybe my November favourites. Yeah, wintry vibes for sure. Quite airy vibes. I always say that this deck is quite a Libra kind of deck for me, but look at this. How could you not see winter with that silver sparkle? It's the colour palette for me really with this one. Let's see if we're getting a good view of it. Shall we zoom into the forest with it? Yeah, why not? There's these sort of greys, lilac-y kind of undertones, these kind of muted pastel-y kind of colours. You can see this. Very dreamlike, very ethereal, and winter's very much like that for me, especially when we get into these seasons where we might get snow, where the sky might be white. We get a lot of kind of ice around and mist and things of that nature, that sort of make the earth feel a bit more surreal, if you get what I mean. Like you really are entering some sort of Narnia world. So yeah, this really speaks to that, those really icy, cool undertones and colour palette. And I said that surrealism, you know, with these figures, with, like we've spoken about before, kind of these like no expressions, no kind of features or faces, very kind of like dreamlike beings. And it's been really cool using it this season so far. Like I've said before, I would have loved a guidebook to this, actually explaining the choices, because they are so intriguing. But I have to say, like, I haven't been too puzzled by it lately. I found it quite for me, I get intuitive hits as soon as I see it, even though they're not like the most traditional RWS. It's still giving you those meanings. It's actually giving you it from a different perspective, which I like. And the winter for me, you know, it is quite a contemplative season for me. I'm like a bear. I like to hibernate, and decks that sort of give you that that scope to sort of reflect and you know, deep dive a little bit, offer you that sort of different perspective. Definitely fit this winter vibe too, so it kind of fits in with that too, this Monsoon Tarot. So yeah, it had to be used and utilised for this winter season, and I do recommend it. Like I said, I feel it's a bit of a shame that we don't get a guidebook. That's always a shame for me when something deviates from the RWS. I want more than just a keyword guidebook, which this, you know, unfortunately is. Even though I must admit, some of the keywords are quite interesting. They're enough to give you a hit, because they're not always the most traditional keywords. But yeah, that's the Monsoon Tarot. Worth a look. I think Tavada, I got it as a Kickstarter, but I think Tavada stock it now, so it might be worthwhile. Next up, we have another holiday favourite. We're definitely going to be getting some Christmassy vibes in this. But also, I have to say, outside of that, the colour palette of this deck is also wintry for me because it's monochromatic and a bit like black and white. And that is, what is this one called? The Marauders Map, or the sort of, I think the new version of this is called like the Wizard's Tarot or something. This is the original first edition copy, and it's basically just these sort of manipulated photographs from the Harry Potter films. For me, Harry Potter is a very Christmassy thing, you know, wanted to do that marathon, you know. I don't know if the films used to get released at that time. I don't know why it's so poignant for me Christmas time, or they used to just show the movies at that time. I don't know, but it is that winter. It reminds me of winter for some reason, sitting down with this movie. So there's that aspect to it, why it's getting pulled out for winter. But like I said, it's this color palette, this black and white, quite stark color palette. It kind of draws you in. Again, we'll see some oracles and stuff that I think this sort of color palette is really easy to pair with, and it's quite wintry. I do like it. I do like it a lot for this season. Again, it could be something that can be used at any time, I think, especially if you're like a Harry Potter fan, you have a fandom and these scenes speak to you very strongly. It's great, you know, year long, but there is something about Harry Potter that's very wintry, very Christmas to me. And yeah, and like I said, this sort of black and white colour palette is very like wintry to me as well. It's very cool. I do like it. I definitely have to get some more use out of it. As you can see, it's still in order. I need a bag for her, man. Oh, like I felt like I saw like a Marauders Map. Someone did make a tarot bag on Etsy, but I sold out. I was like, oh, that would be the greatest bag for it. But yeah, I've definitely been considering using it. I haven't used it for a read yet, but when I was pulling out decks, I was like, yeah, this is a winter deck for sure. Definitely. So yes, Marauders Map. Little bit of a fandom deck there. Wintry and Christmassy for several different reasons. Okie dokie. Next up, we have a relatively new one. Very happy to have it in the collection, and that is the Ink Witch Tarot by Eric Mayle. What can I say about this deck? Another one that it would have been cool if it came with a guidebook, but again, quite an intuitive reader. But as you'll see, I have been using this one for reads since the winter season began, actually. As you'll see, it is this very, what's the word? There's sepia tones, if you see by the colour palette. Again, quite muted. These sort of lilacs, greys, like kind of sepia hues. You know, like when you make kind of aged older. Did anyone ever do that? Like when they try and make you in school, like write a letter and make it look aged by like doing like tea bag kind of stains, or is that just the UK thing? This is what it reminds me of. Like there's been like a sort of tea stain put over the images. If that makes sense. You know, we have these sort of muted kind of monochromatic colours here. We've got the greys, you know, the muted blues, the whites, the blacks, the lilacs, and these sort of sepia tones. And that just, to me, just screams winter. You know, these are all the kind of colours that we're seeing. Well, if we're in a hemisphere that, you know, does get quite cold, you know, this is what this speaks to. It's this very cool, these cool undertones. I'm loving this deck. I think it's so magical, honestly. Some of the images that have been picked for it are like beautiful. Look at the bees for the Three of Pentacles. But you know, you see what I mean? Like even though it's like a Pentacles card and it's bees, and that's something you'd kind of associate with me anyway. I'd associate with spring, summer, these sort of green and oranges and warm colours. You can see it's not. It's still taking on. It's very the colour palette and the sort of aesthetics of this deck are very I mean, there's a lot of continuity in it, if that makes sense, and I like that. I do like that. It's very uniform. It just, like, even just like that hot cup of tea, like it just reminds you of like wintry times, and you want to pull it out in winter times to remind you of that. That's your warm hug, you know, some cocoa in a mug. And even like this sort of fantasy, so some of the, if you can see, some of the cards are a bit fantasy vibes, kind of magical vibes. For me, I always associate that with quite a wintry landscape for some reason. Isn't that interesting? Why is that? Is that because I kind of make associations with a lot of fantasy fiction that I've read or watched, and there's a lot of wintry vibes usually in that at some point. Starkness, I don't know, maybe there's something magical about the air when it is, you know, when you do have snow and you do have that almost like a veil is appearing, you know, with the weather. I don't know, because we do associate these colours with sort of magical beings, isn't it? Like these silvers and, you know, it's like fairy godmother looking kind of creature here. It's interesting. Maybe there's some psychology behind that. Let me know your thoughts. But yeah, definitely a wintry deck. Been enjoying it very, very much. Love the colour palette. Matches the season, you know, but it still has this warmness about it in terms of, like I said, you saw with the Ace of Cups there, that sort of cocoa mug, and some of the sort of beautiful imagery in that. Enough to warm you up so you're not feeling too stark using it. So yeah, that is the Ink Witch Tarot. I think it's available again now for, I think it went out of stock for a little while, but yeah, I got that at the boutique, by the way, so it's definitely stocked there. What next? What next? Where do I want to go? All right, let's go to a bit of a deeper and darker one, shall we? Getting this baby out because it's been a little bit neglected since I've got it, actually, and that is the Somnia Tarot. Now, I think I have said before, and I'm hoping to make a series on it, I am someone that quite likes using this sort of seasonal and elemental energy to sort of amplify the work I want to do. Some people, and I totally get this as well, wouldn't really want to embark on shadow work when things are already dark and miserable potentially outside and they're going through some sort of, you know, they might be affected by SAD or something. And I totally get that. It can be too heavy to do it in these seasons, but on the flip side of that, it can be nice to draw on that energy. It can be quite empowering to take that time. Like I said, I go into hermit phases during these seasons anyway, so why not utilize that for a bit of shadow work? And I think this is definitely has potential to be a shadow work deck. I've done a few reads in that sort of realm with it so far, and I found it quite poignant. Look at this tower card. Oh, I love that tower card so much. It's like a photographic deck. I think they're manipulated to, are they? Or did he really just set this up? I think he just set this up. I've got the accompanying guidebook, which I find really cool, really fascinating. Someone was doing a very good deep dive of this on Instagram. If I remember her page's name, I'll definitely send it, because she had some really incredible insights, and she has a really great tarot page on Instagram. Some of you may, I don't remember the name offhand, but I will add it into the description. So yes, I've seen a few people get this recently and be quite struck by it, and I'm no different. It speaks to winter for me. As you can see, we do get these more greens and stuff as well. But I think, again, it's those shadowy elements. Look at that star, those sepia tones, that sort of, you know, shadowy kind of aspect of it. This sort of almost eeriness, you know, that, and stillness that the winter, I think, very uniquely brings. It's a season, you know, when you're out and the sound carries differently, particularly if you're in the cold or the snow. You know, things can be foggy, murky. All of your senses become a little bit more, what's the word? I don't even know if it's heightened, but I don't know, just imagine yourself, you're out, it's snowy, it's cold, the air is crisp, you're feeling cold, you've got that sense of touch, everything's icy and cold. The way sound is carrying is different, the way you can see things is different, the smell of things is different. And this sort of encompasses that. It's almost like walking into that with a lot of these cards, with these shadowy kind of either monochromatic sepia tones, kind of mask kind of figures. Again, a bit like that Monsoon Tarot. And And it definitely speaks to that sort of otherworldly element of winter, I think. And especially if you want to embark on shadow work, it definitely speaks to that. Stepping into those shadows and doing that sort of contemplative work, which again, like I said earlier, I think the winter time kind of in and of itself speaks to that. As much as it can be about rest, I think if a lot of us, I think if we choose to, we can draw on that energy. It can be quite a powerful energy. I don't know, I might be sounding a bit weird here, but I don't know, there's something about wintertime for me, like I said earlier, like something about like a veil, like coming. I feel like it makes me feel like closer to those sort of otherworldly beings or shadows and things like that, even those within myself, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's like there's just something about it, something about the vibe of winter that brings that sort of curious kind of stepping into another realm energy to me. I hope I'm making sense with that. And this is very much like that. You are very much, it feels like you're stepping into these images. They're very, very emotive, most of them, I would say, especially the more harder hitting cards or the more shadow kind of, the cards that cast more of a shadow kind of landscape will give you the scope to kind of explore those kind of aspects of self. It really feels like you're kind of stepping in to this other kind of realm, and a lot of them do have that very like cold, wintry vibe about them. There is some starkness here, but a lot to be gleaned from it. It's very powerful. It's very like the way like a cool winter's breeze hits you. I say breeze, like I'm talking more a strong wind, like slaps you in the face. That's sort of what some of these images do for me. So I definitely am looking forward to using it, especially this January, I think. As I'm trying to step into my focus and my goals and my resolutions and things, and carrying on from the shadow work I've embarked upon last year. I definitely think this is definitely got scope to really step into that more. So yeah, that's enough rambling on about the Somnia Tarot. Hopefully that made sense. But yeah, wintry vibes for sure for me, I have to say. Definitely the shadow work aspect of that as well, working with the shadow during this time, I think it's going to be very cool. Step into that deck with that more for sure. Okie dokie, what have we got next? Shall we stick with tarot still? What do we think? Yeah, I think so. Okay, kind of in the same vein, let's go for this one. I finally got it, guys. This was a Christmas present. Like I have said to you guys, I'm really trying to work on my deck spending. But I had a few, I was like, okay, to the end of the year, these things came up secondhand for a good price like that. I'd ask for it for Christmas presents. So yeah, I finally got my hands on the Shimmering Veil Tarot. Here we go, guys. If you can see it, by Silicon Ray, a classic and much loved deck amongst this community. I've been eyeing it up for years, not years. I'm really over exaggerating. I don't know when this actually came out. Well, I've been eyeing it up for at least, I would say maybe at least 2. First and foremost, aesthetically, yeah, definitely wintry. We have those silver kind of gilded edges. Obviously this is secondhand. It's slightly, it's been used, it's been loved. Someone's got some use out of this. I'm not mad about that. Like I said, I was looking for it secondhand. I do think I need to cleanse this deck. For any of you looking at ways to cleanse decks, please look at Project Refined Life, the lovely Annette. She had a great video on that. I'll try and link that below because it was very helpful. As someone, I have quite a few different kind of health things, but one of them is quite strong allergies, and I actually struggle a lot with using things like sage and smoking and stuff, like things to do with smoke. Or maybe that means I need to cleanse something, I don't know, but yeah, she really gave us so many other ways in which we can get rid of like previous owners' energies of decks. And I think because this is a deep diver, I do think it's important to cleanse this deck. I don't cleanse all my secondhand decks, if I'm honest. I do it based on the energy kind of feel This one I feel does need it, and haven't done that yet. So yeah, let's center this. What was I going to say? Yes, Shimmering Veil, again a deep diver, again one for potential shadow work, I would say. It's very, again, a bit surreal, very emotive, quite intuitive. She's done a beautiful job with this. It's very, speaks to you like a very energetic level. It, like I said, very emotive, like it hits you in the feels. This sort of kind of abstract kind of art, I want to say, this sort of impressionistic kind of art. It really, there is something otherworldly about it, which again speaks to the way I view winter, like almost like this time of year where this veil kind of comes down between us, and you know, we associate with ghosts and ghouls and, you know, the other side to a degree, you know, stepping into that very stark white kind of snow-filled world. This definitely has that vibe, you know. It's not completely a colour palette that kind of speaks to winter, although, like I said, look at the gilded edges and the kind of spectral backs. That's amazing, right? But it does have that ethereal vibe to it, which to me is very wintry. And again, it's energy in terms of working with a shadow, doing some inner work, that contemplative deep dive work. For me, works for me in the winter season. Like I said, I sort of, when I slow down naturally, I go into hermit phases. And obviously some of that's about rest and recuperation. Some of it's about doing that inner deep work, you know, so I can come out fresh in spring with some new growth, you know, and enjoy the summer, hopefully, having evolved a bit. Anyway, that's the hope, you know, idealistically. So yeah, I've only really looked through this deck. Ooh, this one's just sent shivers up my back. What's that? The Hangman. Look at that. That's almost like you can see that staglanite kind of energy here. Very interesting. Oh, I don't know why I've just got the image of the Spacious Tarot, the Temperance card in my mind here. That's a very poignant Temperance card. You see the one with the ice and the fire? Wow. I don't know. I might have to do a little study of these both together, then maybe. That's a little bit of an intuitive hit. See what I mean? It's very emotive. And I'm loving it. There's some cards in here that I think are like beautiful. There are some that are like eerie. This one being one of them, hard hitting. Beautiful. You know, it's very emotive. That's the main, I keep saying it, but it's just hits you in the heart space. I think this deck gives you those guttural emotions, that start, you know, that them raw emotions, which is something else I kind of associate with winter, that those raw components, elemental components that make up the world and life, you know, the cold hard truth of things. Oh, look at that being, it's beautiful. So I do look forward to it. These jester-like beings are very interesting to me. I don't know. Or are they meant to be some sort of alien beings? Those of you who are more familiar with that, do let me know. Like, because I'm noticing a certain head shape in this, which is quite interesting. Look at this, very wintry. Look at this, like, almost like an eagle, right? This is one of my favourite cards in the whole deck. So yeah, there's something incredibly elemental about this deck, and for me it speaks mostly to winter, I would say. Again, not solely in its colour palette, but I think just in its rawness and its kind of starkness as well, and its capacity to be used for shadow work. So yeah, that is the Tarot of the Shimmering Veil, the Shimmering Veil Tarot. Shimmering Veil Tarot, another deep diver for winter. Yeah, guys, really look forward to really doing some work with that. You know, as I've got a little bit to a more grounded pace post Christmas, because it's been a little bit crazy post Christmas, New Year. I'm filming this just as we've got into the new year, and my God, that limbo, right? It's crazy. That limbo phase. What have we got next? Okay. Yeah, we've got to speak to this. It's very interesting. I've noticed the thread of what's come up. here. And that is some animal deck energy. I didn't really fully realise this, but for some reason, a lot of my animal decks, and I don't think I have too many, they do speak to me of this season. First and foremost, we have the Orion's Tarot deck. This is my mini version. So the mini indie version is so sweet. And it hasn't got much use out of me in recent months, if I'm honest. Again, guys, let's just ogle at the... Ogle? What's the word? Let's just ogle at the aesthetics of this silver gilding. Even though it cuts up hands to pieces. Cara just got this from Moonlight Arcana. This deck's so cute, right? You might think, oh, the colour palette really, is it like, is it wintry? We're not getting these sort of silver and greys and all of that shebang, are we? But what we are getting is this sort of cosmic slash kind of, this is kind of, Orion's Tarot is a bit of a giveaway. It's almost like constellations, right? We do get this sort of shadowy, cosmic kind of constellation, animal energy with this. That for some reason, for me, speaks to winter. I don't know, I saw it and I was like, you know what, I've got to crack this out again for this season, because there's something about it, this sort of shadowy, like, almost like underworld. We've got a lot of these sort of dark, deep purples and stuff, which is very cosmic, I know, but it's almost like sort of underworld vibe to it. Does that make sense? What am I looking for? Why am I thinking of Zelda right now? Twilight Princess. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember, if you played Zelda and that game, sometimes you end up in Twilight Princess in these parts of the world when you're exploring where it all goes like weird and dark and like purpley and stuff, if I remember rightly. Do you know what I mean? Either way, it's like you're entering into a shadow realm. And for me, winter's a bit like that. We're entering into this shadow realm. The world is becoming, the days are getting darker sooner. The weather's changing. It's getting more gloomy. It's getting more cold. Things are slowing down. There's death around us, dying, that cycle of life. The trees are shedding their leaves. Everything becomes stark. Everything goes into hibernation. And this speaks to that to me, this deck, this kind of the darkness of it. And the animals being the sort of guiding light in that, like these constellations. I think the other reason why I'm drawn to sort of my animal decks in this season as well, particularly when I'm doing shadow work, is because I feel them to be very supportive decks usually. I think working with power animals, if you're looking for something, an energy to... here we have my shadow work guide animal, which is an owl. There he is. Where was I with that? If you're looking to do shadow work, I do think we need to draw on as much support as we can. And for whatever reason, I find power animal energy very good for that. Even though I wouldn't describe myself as the most animal lover crazy person, like obviously I love nature, animals and stuff like that. I wouldn't describe myself as the pinnacle of that. I do like that energy. I think it's nice to draw upon when you're needing a bit of comfort and a bit of support, which I think we do need through this season. In general, if you're not someone that really likes the doom and gloom, not the doom necessarily, but the gloominess of winter, which I don't. I pine for spring almost immediately as autumn begins. At least it's nice to have these sort of comforting animals. And I like how this deck showcases them. Can you see how often you have this very dark shadowy background, but this majestic light figure of the animal, almost as the star, as the constellation of this deck. I really like that about it. I really think the guidebook is quite something. Oh, where is it? I've got the hardback guidebook somewhere. Let's showcase it. Let me find it quickly. Okay, we found it. It's really beautiful, the indie production of this deck, I have to say. I know a few people were disappointed with the mass market, but it's got to be honestly one of my favourite guidebooks. I feel like a lot of work was put into this. The explanations, the descriptions of each of the cards is really cool. You know, the perspective from the animal's kind of perspective in terms of, you know, kind of the features it has and how that sort of kind of relates to each card meaning. I just find it really, really cool. I think the Ambi-Sun, I'm not quite sure what the author's, it's written by Ambi-Sun and TD Cloud, yeah. I think they've done a really good job with that. And again, a very supportive deck. Has the potential to be a very supportive deck, especially if you're embarking on shadow work. So yeah, Orion's tarot deck, you can get a mass market pretty easy. Like I said, I'm not sure people like the quality of the mass market as much, but you know, you still get the book, you still get the imagery and the vibe. So it's worth checking out. Next on the animal agenda, which is kind of similar, this is a mages only deck, which I don't tend to buy very often, because I always get like, I'm like, oh my god, I just wish they make the full 78 because this is so beautiful. But obviously making a full tarot deck is a lot of work. But yeah, this is called the Natural World Tarot. I do quite like, though, the few major arcana only decks that I have can be cool, like, you know, especially if you just want to work with that big energy, which the major arcana is kind of good, like when you're trying to work with certain things, if you're doing a study of that, if you're doing some archetype work, shadow based work in that fashion, if you're doing your card of the year. Marine from Waves of Your Soul made a really good video about that, how you can calculate that, what your card of the year is going to be. And mages only that you like can be good for that, to keep a hold of that energy. But yeah, as you can see, animal energy once again. We have these black backgrounds. We also have some with white backgrounds, to be fair. There we have our majestic strength of the lion. Again, it's very wintry with the black and white vibes, these sort of muted colours, as you can see here, this moth. Again, that supportive animal energy that I like to draw upon in these months when I might be feeling a bit down as well, if I'm honest. Like I said, not my favourite time of year. Look at that. The elemental energy in this deck I really like as well. We've got that mix, the elements and the animal energy. After all, it is called the Natural World Tarot. I just think like it's been really cool to have this in the collection and get it back out for this winter season. Again, I'm going to be using this to look at my card of the year, which I haven't calculated yet actually, so I have to get back to you on that one. There's a few videos I want to do. I've just got out of my year of the devil and looking at attachments, so that's obviously when my shadow work began, and that's going to be continued into this year for sure. But yeah, look at the wolf, beautiful wolf energy, doe energy, the Empress there. Again, very ethereal, very magical, quite stark, quite minimalistic, which again speaks to winter for me. This sort of starry, snowy energy. You almost feel like these are like snowflakes dropping off of him, and he's kind of looking at you in a wintry forest. Again, but there's that support there. That's the Emperor. And I love that. That's actually really sweet. I didn't even notice that before. We have the Fool is like Bambi. We have the Emperor as the stag. And earlier on we had the doe as the Empress. Isn't that beautiful? Like a whole family there. Yeah, Bambi reminds me of like winter as well. That's really always poignant to me with the ice and the snow in that film. So yeah. Was it like a snow leopard? I could be wrong there. Oh, a beautiful owl. This is definitely, owl energy is something, you know, an owl is a totem animal for me. Particularly a snowy owl for some reason. I once got my dad to paint a whole one on my ceiling in my childhood bedroom. If I have photos, I will insert them here. it was interesting. So it would look over me. When I think about it, my bed was situated underneath, so it was watching over me, and I decided that at the age of 9, 10. So that's interesting. And for those who've been in this channel long enough, you know I had a bit of an obsession with drawing owls throughout my childhood. I've kind of given them, or they've given themselves this, maybe they've chosen me. They're my guides through my shadow work, and a support power animal through my shadow work. I've noticed owls. That's what I've chosen as the sort of guide to help me navigate those realms when I'm diving deep into that kind of work, as a, you know, support, you know, that a voice of wisdom. Maybe I need to look into the deity with that. Who is it? Is it Athena? Very interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely be speaking on that more as I go on. But yeah, owls are very significant for me, and it's particularly my shadow work. Look at this otter, isn't he beautiful? So yeah, this deck's really, really cool, and I think it goes well actually with the Orion's Tarot. They can definitely be used together. But yeah, that big energy, that major arcana energy, and we want to be doing this very raw work. I think that's very wintry for me. So yeah, that's the Natural World Tarot. It's an indie production. I bought this secondhand as per usual. Someone was selling off quite a lot of their collection on eBay, and I bought a few off of him a while back. But yeah, might be worth checking out to see if you can find it, or it might still be on Etsy. That's what it looks like. I'll try and list everything below as usual. What we got next? All right, let's go for our last tarot. Ooh, that is something I am so excited I have. Oh guys, I can't tell you how chuffed I am that I own this deck now. It was always meant to come to me, and I had so much to kerfuffle trying to make sure that I got a hold of it. My goodness, that I've spoken about already in my December faves, or I'm going to speak about my December, so I'll spare talking to you even about it twice. But it is none other than the Yokai Yochi Tarot. Guys, I finally got my hands on this deck for like without paying silly money for the first edition. This is the second edition. Crazy kerfuffle trying to get it. You know, thank you for everyone who offered to take it in for me, and mostly for Sandy from Exploring Tarot for taking it in for me and sending it on. You absolute star. I can't tell you how chuffed I was, and thank you again so much for doing that for me, because I love this deck from the moment I saw it. Can we just look at the production though? Look at the box. If any of you don't know, or if you have been on the channel long enough, you definitely will know, I am a big fan of Japanese culture in general, I would say, but definitely their sort of folk tales, their kind of you know, their folk tales, fairy tales, Shinto kind of, which I guess is kind of their religion to a degree, their culture in terms of, you know, their sort of fairy tale culture, you know, the way they look after their forests, and the yokai, exactly what this deck is about. So to have a deck that spoke to that, whew, I had to have it. I had to have it, and I've been using it non-stop since I got it. Because I love it so much. First and foremost, why it speaks to winter for me. This beautiful colour palette is so, ooh, look at the backs as well. Again, these sort of sepia, monochromatic kind of tones, very muted, very stark, but like, oh, you know, it's like old school kind of Japanese kind of drawings and paintings. It's almost like you're looking into a kind of old school book or encyclopedia, which reminds me I need to get my hands on a book called Japan Demonium, which is an English sort of translation of a sort of old school encyclopedia of yokai. But yes, for anyone else that's interested in getting that, just so you know, if you have that deck, that book could be helpful. Yeah, look at it. We just get these sort of these tiny like highlights of like these golds. That's sort of a bit like the gilding on it. But it's mainly this muted colour palette. It's very stark for me, very wintry. Again, like I said, the winter reminds me of this time like where I feel like a veil is dropping, or this sort of otherworldly energy is entering. It's the season I associate most with like ghosts and ghouls and, you know, supernatural beings. I'm not quite sure why, but like I said, it's just the vibe and feel. Everything kind of sensorily kind of changes when we get into winter for me, especially if you're in a cold hemisphere. And it just speaks more to being able to see those things, you know, being in contact with these things. So having a deck that speaks to this kind of yokai energy. I have one already in the form of that beautiful calming yokai one. That's the French production, thanks to Marine from Waves of Your Soul. And I can't wait. I actually haven't used them together. I mean, their energy aesthetically is quite different in terms of colour palette, but it will be interesting to see how they go. I will show the Oracle I've been loving using this with though, which is another kind of winter kind of vibe for me. But yeah, love it. Absolutely adore this deck. The only thing I would have loved with this is, again, a more comprehensive guidebook. It is a keyword guidebook, but it does tell you who these yokai are. So it's going to take a bit of study, this deck. And I'm good with that. Again, great for the winter time when I have more hibernation kind of phase, when I'm in a more hermit mode and I'm in that contemplative kind of ready to sit by myself in solitude and learn things mode, you know, less sociable as it were. It's a good time for it, right? And I'm, you know, as this is something I have an interest in, that's cool for me. I'm happy to do that, genuinely. It's like a, you know, it's a cool activity for me to do. Oh, look at him. So I do definitely think this is going to take study. It's going to be a bit of a study deck to get me more familiar with it, understand its messages, really put my stamp on it in terms of learning what these yokai are and seeing how they relate, you know, because clearly the creator has chosen them for a reason. And you do sort of get that in the book. You do sort of see why these things have been chosen to a degree, even though not all of them are very straightforward to understand in terms of RWS, I don't think. It's going to be interesting learning more about each of these yokai and then seeing how that fits into the meanings of the cards, you know, for me on a personal level. So I look forward to that. I feel like this is the winter counterpart of my Botan Tarot, which I see as much more spring and summer like. This is more the shadow deck element, although it's quirky and fun. It's definitely got that sort of dark kind of undertone to a degree. Look, especially him, look at him. I'm hoarding all of the wands. But yeah, I've been loving it. I can't knock it just yet. I definitely have to get more to terms with how the yokai marry with the meanings of the cards for sure. But so far, I haven't found it too difficult to do readings with. Like I said, I've been loving reading with it in recent weeks since I've got it. I've been using it for my weekly reads actually. And so yeah, that's the Yochi Tarot. Love it. And now I shall show you what I've been reading it with in terms of oracles. I do tend to do a 3-card pull for my weekly draw, and that would usually be 1 oracle and 2 tarot cards, or however they just decide to come out, to be honest with you, because you know the cards have a life of their own and desires of their own, energy of their own. Sometimes that means the messages will not come out in that format for me. That's okay. Like this week I have 2 oracles and 2 tarots because that's just how it came to be. So I don't know why I'm opening this before I'm showing you the deck I've been loving using that with, which is a very wintry deck for me, and just overall, you know, I was using this from autumn as well, to be fair. Is the Wisdom of the Forest, an intuitive card deck by Jess Purser. I love her deck. She has the Crystal Forest deck. I'll really be interested if she make a tarot. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, again, these dark black and white monochromatic sepia kind of tones for this deck. Love it. Love it. It's been so great having this as a sort of focal point for the Yochi Tarot. I think that's a really beautiful marrying, forest energy and yokai energy, because obviously so many of them, you know, are you know, in Japanese folklore, you know, their forests are a big thing, you know. This is where a lot of these yokai reside, you know. So it's cool to see like what yokai are in the forest of my week, you know, and what is that forest speaking to and what are they speaking to. It's been such a cool marrying of energy. I've really loved this combination. It's definitely been a December favorite. and it's coming to a January favorite too. So as you can see, it's like so pretty. It's very like, it's kind of a little bit haunting, but inviting as well. Like it's like, let's come in. Each of you can see each of these forests are different. Again, like it's all the same color palette, this very stark kind of color palette, which I think is good in a way. It's the messages are quite direct, which I like. I think I said before, this is more of a sharpshooting deck, and the other Crystal Forest one is more of a contemplative deck. And this one just been very clear to me, and I think the color palette might have something to do with that, which is interesting to me. It's like not necessarily hard hitting, like slap to the face, but just like, here you go, direct, there you go, there's your message. And that's really cool, and especially cool when you're using it with a deck that you're getting used to in terms of the Yokai Yochi. Like I said, you know, it sort of helps pull those tarot meanings together for me, or gives you know, like I said, those cards that I'm not 100% sure, because they're not always like 100% RWS. It gives them more shape, you know, because this is like saying, this is the forest these yokai belong to. That this is the message that it's trying to tell you, you know. I like that. It gives it place. It gives it a sense of place. That makes sense. So this is a great combo. If you have these two decks, definitely give it a go and tell me how you feel about it. Or if you have one or the other, you know, and you can get your hands on, you know, the deck you don't have out of this combo, definitely try, because I definitely think this is fast becoming one of my favorite combos of all time. But yeah, again, this stark, very raw, direct kind of energy here. You get this little book, but then there's also like a more comprehensive book that's really cool, and it's like drawn like a journal, and it's really pretty. If you enjoy things like that, like journals, and seeing how people kind of make things like that look very handmade as the guidebooks to things, you will definitely enjoy this deck. I have to show you the book now, don't I? I've set a precedent with the old Orion's Tarot. Let me get it. Here it is, the illustrated guidebook. See what I mean? This is the more comprehensive guidebook. Even to be fair though, the little one is good enough, I think, but this is just something a bit nice. You see what I mean? It's like peering into Jess's, oh, I love this one, journal or something. And it's a bit of inspiration actually for me to when I'm doing my own. I mean, I have these ideals to be like a journal person. I'm also very perfectionistic and like, oh, I wish I just could draw and do calligraphy like this, but I know that I can't do it yet. But it still would probably come out nice if I just gave it a go, you know. But yeah, that's the book. Really cool. Definitely going to make more use out of this, because I've mainly been using the smaller book, to be honest with you. So yeah, that is the Wisdom of the Forest. A great oracle companion to the Yokai Yochi and to many other decks. It's actually worked very well with the Monsoon Tarot, the Ink Witch as well, I found. So yes, definitely not, you know, definitive at all. It's very versatile. So next up, which may be the last on our list, unless I find a Trump Tarot somewhere. I have one in mind, but I don't think I've got it out. We shall see if I'll show it, or I'll just mention it. But last but not least then, potentially last but not least, in terms of Oracle for winter, I have got the Folktails Oracle by Hannah Willow, a UK creator. Had to get this when I saw it. It was quite big amongst this community for quite a bit, a little while ago. Again, back to that animal energy, how could we not? And it's called Folktales, which I love. Oh, that's gonna fall. You know, it is a pun, for goodness sake, of animals and folktales. two of my favourite things, nature and stories. So yes, we have this deck. I definitely feel I need to corner around it, but can you see what I mean? Definitely winter vibes, right? Look at this magical kind of, these deep magical blues, the darkness, but again, like that Orion's Tarot, all the light kind of energy for these drawings is sort of focused on these sort of magical animals. I love it. It's been so wintry, really getting into that coziness of winter, that the darkness, but the magic of it as well. These blues, look at it. It's so ethereal, so magical. Again, we've got my owl guide there. The constellation energy. We can see that it's got draws some parallels, doesn't it, to that other deck I showed as well. The Natural World Tarot one, the Major Arcana. Very similar cards. So there is a bit of a theme going on here in my picks, I have to say. I'm noticing that myself, a familiar thread. But I love this dreamy, dark, wintry forest energy, animal energy. Such beautiful artwork, you know. I think this is drawn with pastels, and I just love how she's captured the sort of highlights on these animals, like, you know, can you see it in that line work and in the trees? It's like, is it snowing? Are there fireflies? Courage. The messages are interesting as well, I have to say. In the book, you get this book here. Slightly difficult to kind of find the right card sometimes, because it's not done in alphabetical order, but you know, you get there in the end, because they're actually set into almost, if you kind of look at the system, different kind of phases, I guess. But such a beautiful deck. Been so wonderful to have this as just like a weekly energetical kind of card draw for me to have on my altar. Honestly, I love this. I love it. It's just so whimsical and magical and otherworldly. And that sort of dark, wintry nights when all these creatures come out. And some very sweet and supportive messages, like I said. Again, quite a supportive deck. You know, all these animals are there in the darkness, in these sort of nightscapes. You know, there's light on them, you know. It's a very contemplative deck as well. Even if you could see in the stances of the animals, they seem quite contemplative themselves. Look at the cat staring out, you know, the darkness staring out into the openness of the night. Family. Yeah, I've adored this, and I've literally been using it, you know, all through December and now into January. And I have no what's the word? No designs to stop that just yet, because I think it's just such a wonderful piece to have on an altar. In terms of the imagery, just makes me smile when I see it, which is a nice little perk for this time, because it is so magical looking. And there's like stories. I feel like, again, with that whole folktales, I feel like the images really do tell a story as well. There's like magical little folktales I'm making up myself when I'm reading this. And for me, this time is a time for storytelling, you know, sitting around, you know, around a fire somewhere, telling stories, letting the long nights pass with these kind of fables, you know, these lessons we learn if we're embarking on shadow work at this time. Again, look at my owl. Oh, definitely going to have one of these up on my shadow work altar for sure. Oopah. So yeah, beautiful deck aesthetically, beautiful in its sentiments, magical winter, a winter wonder for sure. That is the Folktails Oracle by Hannah Willow. I really look forward to seeing if she's going to make any more decks. Actually, I'll have to look that up. If anyone knows, let me know. I mean, can you imagine a tarot deck in that? Oh gosh, even another oracle, I'd be happy. What other, do you know what, I've been eyeing up the Oak Ash and Thorn mini for a while as well, but like I said, I'm trying to, I've been really trying to go on a kind of depth year this year, but there is something about that I think is quite wintry as well. But I think that's it, guys. I think the other one I was going to mention in terms of tarot was the Nameless One Tarot and Oracle. To me, that's again quite deep, almost dark kind of, you know, vibes, a lot of like purpley in terms of aesthetics, purpley and dark blacks, and it kind of all of that speaks quite wintry to me. And again, quite a symbolic, quite a deep deck that takes a lot of work, and I think, you know, you need time with it, and winter seems to be that time for me. I definitely feel I'm going to be cracking that out. There's going to be a 1 card at a time deck. So yeah, the nameless one is definitely another one I would put on this list of winter wonders for sure. Probably put my blood moon to a degree, although I do see it as more autumnal in its aesthetics. Like I said, I use that deck year round. Year round. I actually have as a backup copy I need to trade of that for a majestic earth, hopefully. Wish me luck, guys, wish me luck. I think, yes, I dare say it, that is all my winter wonders. So guys, yes, do let me know, do you split your decks into sort of elemental energy or seasonal energy? Do you feel like that's how your practice is sort of aligned? Of course, like I said, it's not an exhaustive list. You know, when another deck takes my fancy, it's getting used. If I'm doing, you know, in the child work, I'm going to grab those decks. You know, if I need a bit of fun or a bit of cheering up, I'm going to grab my brighter decks, for sure. But there is something about using this time of year, I think, in that way, you know, getting those kind of decks that reflect the kind of energy of where we're at. You know, I do love that. I like to move the seasons. I do feel like as I grow older and stuff, that's something I want to get more in alignment with, like the Wheel of the Year. Hey, maybe there's a green witch in me yet. if I'm going to be any kind, it probably will be that. Yeah, definitely want to be moving more with that as I get older and I get more, you know, in tune with that, you know, get more knowledgeable about that. So I think that might, you know, be really interesting to watch some videos on you guys that are kind of doing that as it is. I might have to be looking through some playlists on that sort of moving with the seasons energy for sure. But yeah, do let me know what your winter wonders are. Feel free to create your seasonal picks as a response to this. I'll try and do a hashtag maybe. It's probably already one that's gone around. But it'd be really good to see what your winter wonders are, you know. What decks do you like to, you know, remind you of winter? Or just tell me in the comments below. It'd be really interesting to see if we have some of that the same, if there's some that I've missed. Oh, a deck that I want that kind of speaks to that to me as well is the Boo Tarot. I can't get it delivered to my country at the moment, unfortunately. I think there is one for my deck ban I put an exception on, again with the ghosty energy, and it seems like so many of you are having so much fun with that deck. It seems to have scope. But yeah, speaking of ghosts, I don't think I've showcased this one yet, or maybe I have, it depends on what order I release these videos. But this is a customized, I think I showed you my York company like ghosts. It is a poison plant. What flower is this? Is that what it is? Snake root, that's it. It's really cool, right? Quite wintry vibes too in this white ghoulish ghost. Love it. That's my big one. So yes, the collection did grow. Did grow in December. That was a December buy. So yeah, guys, before I keep rambling on endlessly, thank you for being here. I know I'm not the most consistent creator by any means, so if all of you that's still stuck around, thank you very much. I'm glad that you're still here, and I hope you're still enjoying the content, and I'll get my shit together eventually and we'll see where this channel goes. But yeah, for now, thanks for being here. Let me know your winter wonders, and I'll see you next time. Bye.